So, I'd like to talk about some guitars, since, I'm not very good, but I play occasionally in my free time. And I used to own a Jason Becker. I had to sell it due to, the what's going on now. But, I wanted to specifically talk about Kiesel guitars, formerly Carvin. I know a lot of people have already talked about them and whatever, but I wanted to talk about my own experiences with them. Um, because, you know, not a lot of, like, people take, you know, a very fanboyish position on everything, right? Everybody has to, like, jump on the bandwagon, all this stuff. Now, I was so when I had my Jason Becker, I bought it when they were still carving guitars, and I had, and at the time they still had their like their go-betweens in other countries, which in Japan it was Soundhouse. Soundhouse had no idea what they were doing with you know ordering carving guitars, and they weren't very helpful at all. I had to actually go directly to the forums and talk to people there and everything, because because the people at the people at Soundhouse were not very good about their job when it came to answering questions about carving guitars. Now, in the beginning, I like Jason Becker, and I'm really happy about that Jason is still able to make music today and everything, and I still support him and everything. But when it comes, and this is why I'm showing the Jason Becker, because this is like to me the only reason you should buy a Kiesel if you're going to, because it some of the money goes to help Jason. And Jason needs all the help he can get. So, if you're ever going to buy a Kiesel guitar, I'd only say buy a Jason Becker, whatever model that they have, either the numbers or this one, or that they have some like yin yang thing that's like black and white, that I just found out about like last week, because I don't pay attention to Kiesel guitars anymore. And there's a major reason why. Now, to start, is I start off as a major, Ibanez fanboy, and buying a Carvin was the first guitar that I bought that was not an Ibanez, and I was really happy with the Jason Becker. But when I got it, there were some issues. So the main issue with it was in the tremolo cavity, because it's a Floyd Rose. They got too much paint in there and didn't sand it out, so I couldn't actually, it couldn't return to 0 point when I pulled up on the arm or anything. So I had to have somebody shave that down and take care of that. Luckily, it wasn't in a place that was visible, and it could be hidden because of it being inside the tremolo cavity. But that was like, I spent a whole lot of money on this guitar. Now it costs a whole lot more to buy one of these over here in Japan. And not just because of the yen exchange rate, because of, the consumption tax increasing over, like, from the time that I bought it to now and stuff like that. So, for the most part, I was happy with the guitar. But there was a time, because I had been, at the time I was on Failbook, but and I used to watch Jeff Kiesel's little live streams that he'd do on there. And what started to get to me was his attitude started to really rub me the wrong way. And I deleted my Failbook account. I'm not on there anymore. Forget that stupid spyware site. Everybody should get away from there as quickly as possible. Go to Minds, go to Gab, go wherever. Just don't stay at Failbook. and his whole attitude, like, we're better than everybody else, we're this, we're that, and just like bragging like you couldn't imagine. I mean, that comes from somebody, I'm from LA, he's from, San Diego. Like, I that California attitude, I understand. I know, like, people in California act like complete douches sometimes like that. So, but it started to rub me the wrong way because he started actively going after other companies and naming other companies. So, for example, there was a time where I believe it was the NAMM show. I don't remember what year it was. This is quite a while ago because I haven't paid attention to this stuff for a very long time. But the guys from Ibanez went over to look at some of the guitars, and some of the guys from Ibanez in Japan, like the main office, the people like over here. So they were taking pictures and taking a look at the guitars because like, Ibanez used to be an innovator, now is kind of like just following along. And then, so, Jeff Kiesel got on his Facebook and whatever, and he was like posting pictures bragging about how the Ibanez guys were checking out the stuff. And how, like, Ibanez is just out there to copy us and all this other stuff. And if anybody knows anything about Ibanez, they were they got pretty popular in the 70s for their lawsuit era guitars, their Gibson and Fender lawsuit era stuff. And then they started doing their own stuff after they lost a lawsuit. And then that they became innovators because, Steve Vai helped them innovate new things and stuff like that. But they became something, they became their own company. Now they're just like tagging along the every fad they're just trying to jump on now. But one thing that got to me with some of Jeff's bragging was his talking about how Ibanez is, because after Kiesel had like released the Aries like design guitar, the way that the bevel is on the top of the guitar and on the back is very, very extreme. And so because of that, Jeff Kiesel had to go around and pound his chest like, oh, we've managed to do this so well, blah blah blah, forgetting that the Ibanez actually innovated this like 10 years prior with the RGD series. And even though like later Ibanez did kind of copy the color scheme where they put like some kind of like, because they were doing these on the Indonesian models, they would make an RG, they would bevel the heck out of the top, the upper horn and where the armrest is, and then they would put a top on top of the kind of flatter part of the where the pickups and stuff are on the body. And yeah, it looked like they were trying to copy the color scheme of what Kiesel was doing. The problem is that a color scheme is a color scheme, and people copy those all the time. That's like saying you can't make a cherry or a candy apple red guitar because Fender did it first, or some stupid crap like that, right? But the RG design was way before Kiesel came up with the Aries. So could you say that Kiesel was copying Ibanez? I'll leave that to everybody else to decide, but that whole, like, everybody's copying us, we're doing so much special here, blah 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 blah. And then when they released the Vader, they were talking, oh, look at these cool headless guitars, headless. Well, they've been making headless guitars for quite a long time, Jeff. You're not that special. You hit on a market that people were starting to look into, and you just kind of like got lucky. But Steinbergers have been around since the 80s. I mean, just look at who was that? I always forget that band's name. Jesus. Journey. the bass player for Journey was using a Steinberg, for God's sake. um, that was headless. They were doing that way back when, and Ibanez had a headless guitar back in the '80s too, which people don't know much about. It was the AX series, I believe. So, like, Jeff just got lucky. He jumped on a fad before it blew up, but this whole attitude that he had of all like, oh, we're innovating, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. So I stopped caring about Kiesel. I mean, and beyond that, I had also gotten a second, because my Jason Becker was a Carvin, and then I decided to get a Kiesel to see what it was like. So I got a V220, the same thing that Jefferson Starship guy, Craig Chiquiso, was using way back in the 80s. He's still with Kiesels and Artist now, but he uses different guitars now. But I saw that guitar, I was like, oh, that's pretty badass, so I want to get one. And I got one, and to be honest, I was disappointed in it. I mean, like, I got the specs that I wanted, so it wasn't that. It's not the specs issue. The specs were fine, but it's just that when I compared it to my Becker, it just didn't feel right. And there was something missing from it. Like, it felt kind of lifeless, if I want to use a proper term. I think that's the best way to describe it. Is it sounded nice, but I wasn't entirely, like, super happy with it. And I made it look like super 80s, so I did like with their super bright orange color just to be super 80s. I wanted something really flashy because that was the only flashy guitar I had ever had. So so I did that, but I was not happy with it. And so I ended up getting rid of it because I just, I wasn't happy. And it wasn't. I mean, now it's more expensive. They kept raising their prices, but at the time, and plus I had to deal with like direct paying over here, so I had to deal with paying in yen and then consumption tax and all this other stuff, and then you have to pay importing taxes like customs taxes too. The custom taxes aren't that bad though. They're pretty cheap for like a guitar of that price point. I think the customs payment I had to pay was like 6,000 yen, which was like 60 something bucks or something, which isn't bad for how much I had to pay for the guitar. So I'm not complaining about that, but just the guitar itself I wasn't happy with. It felt like that the quality had dropped based on I had actually gone to Tokyo once, and there was a store there that had an old Carvin from like the early 2000s, and I got to play that, and that felt amazing. That was a really good guitar. And and then after that, I had already had the Jason Becker, and I had the V220. The V220 shape is not the issue. I think that it needed bevels, but it's like a completely flat guitar, so if you have a little bit of a belly, it's not very comfortable to play. And the Jason Becker too, as much as I like the guitar, the bevels are not as extreme as like on an Ibanez RG or something. So if you do have a little bit of a belly, there is a difference in how to in the playability of it due to belly size. Ibanez's play a little bit better in that sense. But another thing that got me, and this I think was kind of the final straw with me, because it was right at the time when they released the lithium pickups. And of course, one of my friends plays a lot of Kiesels, and I got to play his Kiesel that had lithiums in it because I wanted to hear what they sounded like myself. And I absolutely despise the sound of those things. They were so thin. Like, they were high, like you could say they were high output, but they were really thin. And it didn't have a lot of it didn't have that like low end sound, or like that mid rangey, like that low mid frequency that makes a sound boom a little bit. It was very thin and tinny, and I was using my friend's guitar, using his specs that he uses when he plays live and stuff. And so they really bothered me. I was like, ugh. The problem with the lithiums is that they're designed for arpeggios and that like solo playing. They're not designed for rhythm playing. And with a guitar, you need to have a balance between the two. Like even as much as I hate EMG pickups, I despise them like you can't imagine. But I will give them this. I will say this. As much as I hate EMG pickups, at least they have a nice thick middle. They have a nice thick mid-range that, like makes the sound like go out. Yeah, it sounds like, because they're active pickups, they sound like robotic garbage, and they sound lifeless, but at least they have that punch to it, where the lithiums just don't. And the reason I'm talking about this is once the lithiums came out is when Jeff decided to discontinue all the old pickups, all the 24 pole piece humbuckers, so the M22SD, the M22V, and all those other ones. And the M22SD and the M22V pickups are absolutely amazing pickups. I love them. And the fact that he canceled them for, hopping on the fat of modern garbage metal, where you just, you call yourself progressive, but all you do is you can't, the only thing is you can't keep time, so you have to make up a new genre called progress. To call yourself prog in order to say, oh, well, like, we're progressive, but you can't actually you just have problems keeping time. Which is why they have all these weird time signatures. So, yeah, blow me, prog metal. But he was pushing towards the modern stuff, and those pickups were very much for, like, people like me who are into the more, thick sounding stuff. So, once he did that, I was done. I can't get the sound I want anymore out of pickups because they're not making those pickups anymore. Now I have a better setup for my pickups, so I'm not complaining. I have very good, I have a very good sound that I have now that I'm very happy with. But those have to be done with DiMarzios, not with, Carvin or Kiesel pickups. Whereas I was happy with the M22SD and the M22V. The M22SD was kind of a thicker sounding Duncan distortion, or like a DiMarzio super distortion. It definitely had, it wasn't as high output, I would say, as a DiMarzio SD, but it was, it had a little more like low mids, I want to say, and so it had a little more punch to them. The M22V were like a high output warm pickup that were just great for like thick, solos. Like if you play high up on the neck, and a Jason Becker's a 24 fret guitar, and I only play 24 fret guitars. I won't play anything else. If you play high up, and I will say that the accessibility with your hands going all the way up to 24 fret is great on a Jason Becker. Oh, if you want to shred hardcore, you buy a Jason Becker guitar. Trust me. The Jason Becker tribute model, this particular bluey, yes, you can get it in different color. It'll void it because it's an option 20, but we won't go into the details about that. But if you get a Jason Becker bluey, you will be very, very happy with it. You'll be very happy with the access to the upper frets. It is such a joy to play that guitar, like way up. And with the M22V, it was actually much better, but they don't make them anymore. So you can't get that nice, thick, warm tone. And they do, when you buy one of these, they have the Seymour Duncan Jason Becker pickup, I think it's a perpetual burn. I've tried it and I wasn't too happy with it. I thought it was too clean for what I like, so I wasn't happy with it. But I did try it, so I'm not gonna, and I'm not bashing Jace or anything, but the sound of that particular pickup I was not happy with. I believe I used it with was it Sentient in the neck? I think it was a Duncan Sentient in the neck with the Perpetual Burn in the bridge. I believe that's what I did. Because I wanted to keep the pickups in the same company so I could kind of get an idea of what they were. Because I hadn't used Duncan's up until that point. But, so, like, you combine the fact that, Jeff's attitude got really bad. They discontinued pickups that I thought were my holy grail of tone, which I can't do anymore. I mean, now I'm happier with the tone I have now, but, I mean, at the time, that was my tone, and I couldn't get it anymore, because if I sold the guitars, which I ended up doing, I wouldn't have been able to get that tone ever again, because I can't just directly order from Kiesel anymore. I'd have to go online and try to find them somewhere, and trying to find them in Japan is almost impossible. So, and people who know about the 22SD and the 22VR, the 22N, they won't let them go because they know how good those pickups are. They're very well made. And just the whole attitude of, like him bashing other companies. Like he went after Ibanez a couple times. He went after ESP too, I believe, if I recall correctly. Like he's always talking about how, like I'll bash at Gibson, but that's because Gibsons haven't made decent guitars in a long time, and I don't like overrated stuff. So the popular stuff I'm not a big fan of. So that's why I don't, especially in Japan. Ibanez is like a no-show everywhere. Nobody uses Ibanez in Japan, so using an Ibanez in Japan is like kind of something special, right? People over here, if they want to play metal, brutal, kind of fake bullshit, they'll use an ESP. They don't use Schecter, they just use ASP. Everybody goes ESP. And I'm not a fan of ESP either, so but I have other reasons for not like that. This video I want to focus mainly on Kiesel. But I decided that after discontinuation of the pickups, after Jeff's bad attitude, and then watching KDH's video about Jeff, the way he treated somebody who was a long time customer who'd been there for decades, and the way he treated that customer was just absolute trash. And I expect if people see this video who are Kiesel fans are going to come at me and ratio me because I know how they act, and it's stupid. Like, I'm saying my opinion based on the fact that I've played multiple Kiesels / Carvins, and I don't like the attitude of a putz who, thinks he's all high and mighty like he's doing something special. You're making a stupid guitar. All of them, guitars have been, an instrument used for hundreds of years at this point, because you had classical guitars and stuff. You're not special. I mean, seriously, get off your high horse. But that's why I will not buy another Kiesel ever again, because I don't want to put, like, I don't want people to look at me if I play somewhere or if I do anything. I do not want people to see me playing a guitar of a company that I have an issue with, and I don't want to support that brand in any way if they're gonna have a president who treats the other people in the industry like garbage. So I won't play another Kiesel, and I'm not buying another Ibanez again, definitely, because they basically bowed to the woke crowd last year. It pissed me off. So I have an Ibanez now, but it was because I had owned it before and I bought it back. And this was from, I think, 2000. I think it's a 2000 model, and it's a Japan limited model. But even I feel weird playing an Ibanez. What I want to get is another Cobran. I want to get a Cobran, because Cobrans are they're MIJ Jacksons without the Jackson on there. They're absolutely amazing guitars. I had one. They're very cheap too. You like you can get a Cobra in Japan, like even like a used one, because they've been out of production forever because the company shut down. Now they make comparison guitars. They are the old people who worked for Chushingaki, and they shut down Cobra, and then they were out of the business a while, and they came back with comparisons. And comparisons are overpriced for what they are. They're very good guitars. I will not deny that a comparison is a very good guitar. But if you're gonna buy a comparison, buy it used. Just don't buy it new. they're too expensive for what they are. And there's only one place in all of Japan that has comparisons. I think it's called Musicland Key, and it's in Shibuya. I went there to try one because I wanted to try one. I played a couple. One of them was under 300,000 yen, and one was like around 400,000 yen, which is like between, I want to say $2,600 and like $3,800. And they felt great. They're not worth that much. They're absolutely not. And their resale value is absolute trash. So if you buy one, you're gonna lose at least 60%. Usually 50% is what you would usually use. You will lose at least 60% on the price of the guitar if you try to sell it, because it's just they're overpriced for what they are. They're very good guitars. I'm not saying that, but I won't trash comparisons. I think they're very good guitars. I just think they're overpriced for what they are, like a Gibson. But even Fenders are better than Gibsons. I'd play a Fender before I played a Gibson. Won't play a Fender. I'll find an Ibanez Blazer again before I'll play a Fender. And yes, I had a Blazer before. It was a really nice. I had a remake Blazer. It was a reissue Blazer from the 90s, and it was in candy red metallic. Oh, it was such a nice guitar. I should have kept it, but besides the point, I like my Floyd Roses, and I like my locking trims. So having something that doesn't have double locking on it kind of drives me crazy because of the lack of tuning stability. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this and just put these thoughts out there, because this is, I've been away from everything for so long, like I did with the Star Wars, like my view of Star Wars Expanded Universe and stuff. But I've taken myself out of it for a long time, and so I feel like I can give a more rationalized position on my views about this. So so I definitely don't recommend buying a Kiesel unless you're gonna buy a Jason Becker, because it's you can only get it through them, and you should support Jason. I think absolutely you should support Jason. I've done other things to support Jason as well. Like I actually directly ordered from his eBay store a mouse pad and some other things, and his family is so nice. They were wonderful. They even sent me something little extra with my order, because I bought 2 shirts. Yeah, I bought 2 shirts and a mouse pad, and I think a set of picks that they sell to their eBay store, and they sent me a little extra with that, and the little extra thing that they sent me was so wonderful. So I definitely if you want to support Jason, go through his eBay store, or buy. And if you have to buy a Kiesel, you just buy one of the Jason Becker models, and then you'll be very happy. Or a Holdsworth. You could also buy a Holdsworth. But yeah, other than that, I would say look elsewhere. The return policy is very ambiguous on what's an option 20, which is a non-returnable option. So you need to be very careful. And it's just not worth the pain if something goes wrong, because you're gonna get if you complain, the fanboys are gonna come at you. if you complain on their Facebook page or their Instagram, they'll dogpile you because you can't, you know, criticize something, even though you can, you're allowed to. So that's why I wanted to give at least a background of, you know, my positions on guitars, and I wanted to talk about Kiesel a little bit. Because also, you know, like other people have been talking about, you know, like KDH did a video a while ago about it, and I didn't want anything to talk about guitars back then. I was still going through a lot of stuff with myself, and I didn't want to talk about that stuff, so... And now that that stuff is kind of subsided, I can talk about it, because I don't want to, like, you know, talk about something that's, like, the in thing, because, you know, that's not me. So, I'd say look around. If you want to buy a Kiesel, find one used. Try them out used. Save some money first before you actually order one from them, because you'll never know what you'll get. Don't go with crazy options and crazy figured woods. Do something very simple, and you'll probably end up happier. If you do crazy stuff, you'll probably be less happy. So, anyway, this is kind of like a mumbly, ranty, you know, disjointed video, but I just wanted to talk about guitars, and I felt like talking about guitars, so I just say don't go to Kiesel. If don't support somebody who's going to that when you have a president of a company who's willing to attack his own customers or attack other companies, which is something that no company in Japan has ever done. You'll never hear ESP, Fujigen, Ibanez, Comparison, who else is out there? God, there's so many others. But like those are the big four I can think of off the top of my head. You'll never hear them go out and publicly trash other guitar companies. They'll always say, come look at our guitars are great. They'll never say, look at them, they're copying us. They'll never say that. So, when you have a president of a company coming out and doing that and shows no tact for the whole industry as a whole, you shouldn't support them. So, anyway, that's the end of this video. I'll see you next time.